siento como independiente. Mi identidad, yo soy directora independiente, esa es mi identidad. Y yo cuento películas, para mí lo que me importa es contar una historia buena. Pues yo no sé cómo pasó esto de que de pronto empecé a trabajar en Hollywood, y me acuerdo que mi profesora mentora, Barbara Más, me decía, pero es que si usted eso es su carrera, está en la industria. Yo, pero ¿cómo pasó esto? Bueno, porque tuve el proyecto con Disney, con Universal, pero mi intención no era moverme en ese mundo, sino poder dirigir una buena historia, una buena película.
Evidentemente, me ayudó mucho tener este reconocimiento internacional y nos ayudó a todos. Pero no hay una cosa directa entre causa y efecto. Entonces, hay un reconocimiento, hay por supuesto, aquí de que soy una productora que ha llevado a cabo proyectos de calidad, y es como un resumen de todo lo que he hecho, ¿no? Es uno de los picos de mi carrera, ¿no? Creo mucho en la coproducción, yo sigo haciendo coproducciones con América Latina. Creo que es pues un modo de articular nuestras cinematografías también en la exhibición, no solo produciendo, sino te garantiza de alguna manera que el otro país también va a hacer un gran esfuerzo por sacar la película.
Ay, me gustaría decir que formar las nuevas generaciones también, básicamente porque me divierto como loca, como enana, porque soy metiche y tengo la oportunidad de meter las manos en cosas ajenas y menearlas. Y tercero, porque me destapa el cerebro. Yo cada vez que estoy dando una asesoría de guión, siento como las neuronas, como cuando uno toma wasabi, que se te va acá el cerebro y se te destapa todo. Cuando yo doy asesoría de guión, que es muy difícil meterte en la cabeza de la otra gente, y cuando lo logro y siento que ya enganché por donde quiere él y que puedo no solo mejorarlo, transformarlo. Yo soy metiche, ¿eh? Yo soy una asesora muy intrusiva, nada de respeto ajeno al derecho de la paz y el respeto ajeno, nada. A que sea lo que yo pienso que es la mejor posible, ya luego él decidirá.
Y al contrario, yo pienso que este acento en la percepción y en tratar de ver y tratar de descubrir pequeños detalles en la realidad no tiene que ver con una expresión de un mundo personal, íntimo, sino también de una postura política respecto de la realidad como algo que puede ser transformado. No aceptar la realidad como algo a lo que hay que someterse. ¿No? Los buenos ejemplos siempre son esas frases como la pobreza estructural, ideas como a las que uno se va sometiendo como si fuera imposible erradicar, ¿no? Y yo pienso que el cine da la oportunidad a los directores y a la gente en general que trabaja en cine de usar la narrativa audiovisual como una herramienta de quiebre de la percepción, y eso es una acción política. Nada, yo pienso que perder la oportunidad de esa acción profunda política es una enorme pérdida, ¿no?
Good evening. My name is Randy Haberkamp. I'm the Managing Director of Preservation and Foundation Programs for the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and I will be the last man you see on this stage tonight, so I think that's a good thing. Anyway, welcome. I want to tell you a few things about what's going on here, because I am officially adopting you all as disciples of our program here tonight and to spread the word about what is going on at the Academy and also throughout Southern California, thanks to the very great generosity of the Getty. We're very happy to be part of Pacific Standard Time Latin America Los Angeles, which the Getty has invented and has allowed 70 arts organizations to participate. I'm very happy that we are one of 3 film organizations that are part of this arts festival because film is an art, and that's why in 1927, 90 years ago, they called this the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. So we're still fighting that battle a little bit, but at the same time, we're very happy to be part of this. We're very happy to have a very extensive program, and I want you to understand the complexity of it. You just saw some samples from our oral histories that were recorded specifically because of the Getty's program. We've been working on this for 3.5 years. We traveled to Cuba yes, actually we did travel to Cuba, but we've recorded history with filmmakers from Cuba, Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, and also, of course, Los Angeles. We even did some oral histories in London because filmmakers were working there. So this is continuing. We did 13, we've done 13 more, and these are all, right now there's 13 of them viewable online. You can hear the entire story of these filmmakers' lives and careers. So I hope you go there and look for it on oscars.org. We will be adding more to it. We have also published a book that is downloadable free as an ebook, and there's some copies that a few of you will get tonight. So look for that book and look for the scholarly approach that it takes to these oral histories. We are doing 12 Monday nights in a row, starting this Monday with Zoot Suit. Luis Valdez will be here, Edward James Olmos will be here. We will have a brand new screening of that, and we are also premiering the restoration of I Am Joaquin, Luis Valdez's first 20-minute film, basically considered to be the first Chicano film. It will be here on the big screen where it belongs. And again, 12 more screenings after that. Also some Saturday screenings. You've got a program that has all the listings. Please come to them. If you are a teacher, if you are a student, if you are a parent whose kids need to understand what came before them, this is where we want you to come and bring them. This is the experience they should have with these films on the big screen that they were made for. We are not just screening movies. We will be having clips. We will be having music. We will be having interviews. We will be having all kinds of surprises. Please come. Please do everything you can to talk about this festival and get people to understand it. It's hard to get the word out because people say, oh, I've seen that movie. This isn't about seeing a movie. This is about experiencing a movie, okay? With your fellow audience members, understanding the emotion, feeling the cinema come alive on the screen, okay? So, without further ado, I want to introduce the woman who helped us curate this series. Some people look at the series and they go, well, why aren't you showing this film, or why aren't you showing that film? Well, the answer is we only have so many nights that we can show films. That's part of it. The other part of it is Lourdes really wanted this to be a series that, number one, reflected a variety of countries, a variety of filmmakers, and people who had very specific voices. She also wanted it to be a series that was filled with portraits that are somewhat unexpected from Latin America and from Los Angeles filmmakers of Latino filmmakers. The idea being that let's not show the films that kind of perpetuate the stereotype. Let's show the new vision. Let's show an alternate vision. Let's show something that's a little surprising. She, of course, is exactly that, a very surprising, very full of life, very perceptive filmmaker. She's been nominated for an Oscar for her work in documentary features, and she is a tireless advocate for the idea of telling alternative stories. Please welcome our curator, Lourdes Portillo.
Thank you so much, and I'm so happy to see almost, well, I can't see that well, but it looks like a almost full house. It's pretty full. First of all, I want to say that I'm deeply grateful to the Academy for having invited me to curate, together with Ellen Harrington, a series of oral histories with Latin American directors, producers, and screenwriters that contributes to an unprecedented archive for public access and scholarly inquiry about Latinos in film. This project involved the participation of nearly 50 members of the Academy's professional staff across departments, and I would like to begin by acknowledging their contribution to this effort. In particular, today, right now, I'd like to thank Randy Haverkamp. He's the head of the Academy Foundation, and thanks to him, we have this. So, these oral histories are the beginning of a cinematic resource that truly represents and mirrors a multicultural nation. Our selection of films connects to the filmmakers who participated in our oral history project and reflects a time period in Latin America and Los Angeles from 1967 to 2006. Along with their oral histories, these artists' films reflect a new direction in production that engages literature, history, and open sexuality. For the first time, women filmmakers are represented. Am I doing something wrong? You see, a woman always blames herself. And it wasn't my fault. For the first time, women filmmakers are represented in significant numbers, and thematically, they're more daring than ever. I appreciate the profundity of this approach in the view of a general absence of Latino oral histories subjects. Rather than doing perfunctory interviews with familiar stories and remaining on the surface, this project demands digging deeper. It's deeper in the sense that the directors, producers, and writers participated in a long-form oral history of up to 5 hours. It took the form of a thoughtful, engaged conversation, not an interrogation. Such an approach inevitably unearths unexpected but deeply felt subjects that influence their lives and help them become who they are. For me, it was an enormous pleasure to take what I've learned over the years in documentary filmmaking and refine it. Deepening the notion of what it is to interview, what it means to ask personal questions, to look for sincerity, to look for, to look for inspiration, for dreams, for beauty and storytelling, to recount memories, and to adapt them to one's work. It was equally gratifying to see the love of storytelling and construction of language. So I'm hoping that you, like me, can relish these enormously compelling characters and allow yourself to dream of what will be their next cinematic creation. In the meantime, this offer has been initiated by the Getty Foundation with Pacific Standard Time, LALA, for which we offer our heartfelt thanks. I have to take a breath. Reading is hard. Histories that help us understand the creative mind and what influences were at play when they made their films. All these oral histories, the book, it's all available online, so you can see that if you go to our website. We are so pleased that you're here this afternoon to hear the conversations we have planned between filmmakers, and in this effort to rectify Latino absence on the screen, I feel that it is now the moment to embrace this important step and gesture of commitment on the part of the Academy and support it. While California will soon have a majority Latino population, Latinos and behind the screen, behind the camera, have been mostly absent since the invention of cinema, really. Consequently, there's a lot of work to be done. I reiterate that we as Latinos are also part of the United States as well as Latin America, and we're glad that you are here to see the work that we have created together. I would like to introduce our host tonight for the panel, which will be Vanji Griego. She's a producer, and we're honored that she flew from her home in Madrid to host this women's panel. Thank you so much. Where is Vanji? Ah! You scared me.
Thank you, Lourdes. I want to welcome and thank you for coming tonight. And I want to thank the Academy for hosting this symposium and creating a space where we can honestly, safely, without censorship, discuss our experiences. When I was asked to host a symposium titled, "How Do Latinas Experience Hollywood?" my first reaction was, we don't. And certainly not proportionally or in a way that is truly reflective of our population within Hollywood, Los Angeles, nationally or internationally, both as audience members, and talent. However, you don't make progress or create change with knee-jerk reactions. We need to be willing to delve deeper and to ask the question of why. And more importantly, what do we want to see? What will it look like when we actually finally get there? What will it take for there to be a substantial shift in the paradigm of how business has been traditionally done in Hollywood when it comes to telling the stories of Latinos, minorities, people of color? But we also need to realize that this is an ongoing discussion and an ongoing education, and sometimes an ongoing battle. These are not new questions that people haven't tried to crack before, or that can be answered in one symposium in one evening. We need to continue to dig deep and explore the answers. We must. It is our responsibility as members of the filmmaking community who have broken through some of those barriers and reached a certain level of success, and though certainly not without difficulties or challenges, but in the end, we have been able to tell our stories, as is clearly evident by the many, many credits and awards that these incredibly talented women will have who are our panelists this evening. And yet we can never be too satisfied. There is yet much to do, and for that reason, one of the obvious observations is how we need to grow our role and participation in the Hollywood power structure. Until we have that proverbial seat at the table where the discussions are had that influences and decide which projects get greenlighted, which talent gets cast, who gets hired, and whose stories are going to be told and by whom, it will be business as usual. And Latinos will continue to buy tickets to the films where they don't see themselves depicted in an honest, accurate, or truly reflective way of the complicated lives they lead. We know we have talent, without a doubt. You'll see that tonight. We know we have stories, and often others have told our stories with great success for themselves. So how do we go from being a voice shouting from the outside to being the decision makers on the inside? Again, my hope is that our panel tonight will share their insights about how they have found their place within the Hollywood structure, or not. Not everybody wants to work within Hollywood. There are other parallel viable options, and we hope to explore some of that as well. However, whether you're working within the system or as an independent person within the United States, it is usually the Hollywood model, the bankable talent, the audience share, etc., that often dictates how and what films will be made. With our panels, we will have the chance to discuss what have been the influences and inspirations that have fed their successes. Was it the support of mentors, strong peer network, sheer grit and stamina? Whatever the answer is for their success, we must harness and we must learn from it. so we can ensure that the next generation has even more success and that proverbial table becomes very, very crowded. We have to ask, what are our individual responsibilities? And at the same time, what do we need to do to hold Hollywood accountable, especially when they showcase and laud diversity? And yet the reality is that there is little reflection of African Americans and even less of Asians, Native Americans, and Latinos in the films and the television programs that are produced year after year. And like I said, this is not an issue that we're going to resolve tonight or with one symposium, but as we celebrate and honor the collective ganas that is represented today among our panelists, these issues and these questions cannot be forgotten. So now I'd like to go ahead and cue up the first clip to start our first panel.
La primera película colombiana que vi, yo tenía 21 años, y yo me acuerdo, wow, mira, son mis mismas calles, son las casas de ladrillo, porque Bogotá está llena de ladrillo, y son las personas que conozco, y fue un impacto muy grande, porque yo no era consciente de que yo no estaba viendo mis propias imágenes, porque era tan grande la influencia que cuando yo llegué acá a vivir a Estados Unidos, yo pensaba que yo me veía como todos los demás, pues yo pensaba, no, pues yo crecí viendo Hawaii 5-0 y Los Ángeles de Charlie, esas cosas, entonces yo me veo así, nunca fue algo consciente que pensara que era diferente. Y me acuerdo acá mi primer año, un día estaba en una fiesta y había un espejo muy grande, de pronto yo me miré y dije, ay no, pero yo me veo distinto a los demás, sí, mi pelo es muy oscuro, me veo distinto, y la identidad fue cambiando mucho con esa percepción.
This is beautiful. I speak. Híjola, who farted? El que primero lo huele, debajo lo tiene. Anna, please don't waste the distilled water. It's expensive.
Oh, hi, Estella. Come on, it's so hot in here. Seriously, I feel like I'm in hell.
16.
How many more dresses to finish, Estella?
18.
Only 18?
Such a relief. We're almost done with this.
Anna, what are you doing?
Hi, Mama. Come on. It's so hot. All the steam has me sweating like a pig.
Well, we're sweating too, but we're not taking our clothes off.
Why not? We're all women, Mom. We all have the same things.
Anna, póntela.
Estella, Rosalie, Pancha, please. Aren't you hot in those clothes? I feel so sticky.
Aren't you embarrassed?
Of what?
Look at you. You look awful.
Mama, I happen to like myself.
Right on, sister.
Y tú? The two of you should lose weight. You would look beautiful without all that fat.
Ay, Doña Carmen, Ana and Estela are beautiful. They look good the way they are.
Thank you, Pancha.
Thank you, Pancha.
Aren't you ashamed?
Mama, you look just like us.
Yes, but I'm married.
Oh, so that's it. Make myself attractive so that I can catch a man.
Anna, listen to her. Learn now or you'll end up like Estela.
Mama, I do want to lose weight. But part of me doesn't because my weight says to everybody, fuck you.
Ave Maria, pero qué boca!
How dare anybody try to tell me what I should look like or what I should be when there's so much more to me than just my weight?
What's wrong with wanting to be thin and sexy?
Rosalie, you don't get it.
Well, I want to be taken seriously, respected for what I think, not for how I look.
Exactly. Thank you.
What if you don't think anything? Ay, Rosalie. Ay, I look like a cow.
Rosalie, shut up. Stand up. Mira, look at yourself. If you're a cow, then I'm a hippo.
And I'm an elephant.
And I'm orca. Ay, Rosalie.
You are so skinny in comparison to all of us.
No, I'm not. Look at my fat hips.
Oh, come on.
And my cellulite.
You want to see cellulite? All right, here we go. You started.
Hannah!
Mira, esto, that's cellulite. This is cellulite. Yes.
Excuse me, ladies. Estela! This is cellulite.
Ay, Estela, it's not that bad.
Look.
It's not.
No tiene nada.
But you don't understand. I got all these stretch marks in my arms and chichis. Look.
That's small, honey.
No.
You want stretch marks? There you go. Okay? I have stretch marks that go from north to south. Ladies, let me show you stretch marks. Pancha! From east to west.
Jesus. She wins.
Pero que se han vuelto locas. Ladies, look how beautiful we are. Y que bien se siente, ¿verdad? To be rid of all these clothes and just let it all hang out. Okay, ladies, we have work to do. Come on.
Who cares what we look like when no one's watching us?
And I understand that we have Patricia in the audience, so we'd like to acknowledge Patricia for this wonderful piece of work. We're going to get our first panel started, and I just want to announce that we have two surprises for our panel. The first is Kate del Castillo, an actress who's joining us tonight. And the second is Carla Sousa, also an actress and producer, who will be joining us tonight. So at this time, I'd like to invite Kate del Castillo to come on up and join me. These are on, yes.
Hi. Thank you so much. Igualmente. ¿Dónde me siento? ¿Allá?
Aquí te sientas. Next, I'd like to invite Amy Garcia to come up and join us. Also an actress. And Carla Sousa, actress and producer, please come and join us. And we have Carmen Cuba, a casting director. Please come and join us. And Yvette Rodriguez, who's a publicist and a founder of American Entertainment Marketing. Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
So we're going to lead into this first panel as a discussion about image and inspiration. And as Patricia's film just showed us, one of my just favorite clips. And as I was watching that clip and thinking, when we take ownership of how we are presented, it feels so great and so empowering. And there's just such a great scene of these women and how she depicted these images. And I'd like to throw it out at all of you and to think about this and how again, going back to the idea of the inspirations and images, how does one maintain your inspiration for your work, whether your work that you're doing or have done or initially getting involved? And I want to start out with the actresses, and then we'll have a couple of questions going this way. But we'll start out with your, as an actress, your inspiration, maybe because of images that you saw of yourself or didn't see. As we know, when the images are positive, how it affects us, when images are negative, or when we don't see ourselves. And I think that's a big issue, and that we're trying to address and talk about. So would either any of you ladies who would like to start first?
Well, first of all, I'm very excited to be here with these amazing ladies, and you know, I think one of the things that had happened to me here in the United States. I've been here for a long time now, but it's exactly not to sexualize our characters as actors. I think as actresses, I think we need to to take care of them, because especially being a Latina, there's so many stereotypes still. So all the time, and it just happened to me in a movie. I had to be on my panties and walking, and I was playing a lesbian hippie, something like that, right? So but the director, thank God, was a woman, and but the the camera guy had the camera right on my ass. And he said the culo shot, no, like that. So and it was funny that the way cause the director was like, this is not what it is about the movie. She happens to be like that, but that's not what I'm trying to say. So
you have a really nice culo. You do. Ándale, ándale, todos sabemos.
You are very nice with me. Thank you. It was not good at culo shots, trust me. Pero, you know, I loved it that you know, with a woman, and I've worked with a couple of women directors, and it's totally different. You feel much better. And here in the United States, it's just not sexualizing our characters, but also it's like, okay, soy Latina, soy mexicana, pero soy diferente a Jennifer Lopez. She has another kind. It's like trying, because she comes from Puerto Rico and we come from Mexico, and we're not the same, right? So it's a lot of things that we need. I think we need a lot of work still to do, but we're getting there.
Thank you. And Amy?
Well, for me, Rita Moreno was a huge inspiration for me. I remember specifically reading an article in Latina magazine and reading that she was one of the few people, not just women, to win an Oscar, a Tony, a Grammy, and an Emmy. And I didn't know that that was possible, because I was the first person in my family to ever be in entertainment. And that was a big change for me, where I thought, I'm half Puerto Rican, half Mexican, and I thought, she's Boricua, she's Puerto Rican, if she can do it, I can do it. And so that was very influential for me. And to, you know, Kate's point, I'm a little bit more optimistic. I do feel like we have a long way to go, but I also, I've been very fortunate in playing professional Latinas in most of my roles. And a specific story I remember, I was doing RoboCop with Jose Padilla, who's an incredible director, did Elite Squad, a Brazilian director, and it was a $100 million budget movie with Gary Oldman and Michael Keaton and Sam Jackson, and the scientist was written Asian. And I remember going into casting and thinking, well, I told my team, I said, why can't a Latina be a scientist? And they're like, well, you know, it's written Asian. And I said, no, I know it's written Asian, but I have 3 degrees from Northwestern. You know, I majored in economics, journalism, and French. And my mom, you know, was the first Latina to graduate Northwestern's dental school, and she's an orthodontist. And so for me, I feel like I can play a scientist easier than a lot of other things. And they pushed to get me in, and they changed the role. And so I feel like it wasn't even in their mind to think of Latinas as molecular biologists and engineers. And I think that, that has to change. And so for me, I'm very inspired by content creators, because I think that that's really where you make the baller move, right? With Gloria from One Day at a Time. I think we have to just kind of keep creating our own content, but I do think it's changing. I mean, you play a law student, a professional, and
she was not initially Latina, though. The same
she
thing.
wasn't.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So do we want to segue there?
Yeah, it's very similar to what she said. I went in, the character's name for the show How to Get Away with Murder, and the character's name was Laurel Wilding. And I wasn't getting any of the Latina parts when I first arrived here. It was 3 months into pilot season. And I walked into the Shonda Rhimes, Linda Lowry casting agency, and it was supposed to be just, whatever race. And when I got the part, then they decided they wanted to make her Latina, and they asked me, and I said, no, please. And they asked me why. I said, no, please. And I said, because you're going to have me speaking like this and be all sexual. And I was like, I don't know. I can't do that. I can't give you that. And so they said, no, that's exactly what we don't want to do. And I said, okay, but is there a Latin writer? Because it all starts on the page. Because if not, they're going to write what they're trying so hard to not write a stereotypes. However, there's so little that they know of the culture. There's only so much they can know. So I fought really hard to have people like Tania Saracho, who's now off doing her own show. Different writers, Fernanda Coppel, who have become each season, and I really stand up for having them on the piece of paper, having the Latinas or Latinos write for us, because I think that changes everything. And I think casting directors have so much power to change that vision of a director and say, hey, this person can actually bring so much more and become a scientist, or let's even change the gender of the role and just write it as, I've done that too, where I'm like, hey, I think this would be a great female role. They're like, what? And I said, you don't have to change anything of the role, just make it female. And I recently worked with Catalina Aguilar on Everybody Loves Somebody, and I had the same culo shot experience where I had just recently done another movie where, the camera does the pan, and I had to be running on the beach, and it was slow motion. I'd done so much dieting for that, and I was like, oh no. And then I'm on this new film with Catalina Aguilar, and I'm sort of waiting for the culo shot, and I'm like, so when are we doing the culo, the body shot? She's like, no, we're staying, this is where it's happening. And I was like, oh, I just started crying. I was like, oh, so I can go and have that pastel over there, I can go have that cake. And she was like, yeah, no, we don't need that. And she let me wear this really ugly lingerie, because that's what I, thought the character would wear. And when I had sweat marks, which I probably have today, sorry about that, she let me have
Real
them.
women.
They wouldn't come in running to make sure I was allowed to be real. And so that was a blessing. And of course, it was a blessing to work with a female director for the first time, which is ridiculous, but yeah.
Well, I think that's one of the things we're hearing in common here is the idea of the female director, which hasn't been very common in the last 10, 15 years. And also what I'm hearing is that women are, not only are you participating in the image of how you're going to be portrayed, but you're actually being huge advocates for how that image is going to be created, and advocating for writers. I don't really remember having conversations with folks where actresses felt empowered to have that kind of a conversation and to insist, unless they were, financing or, so I'm curious to know how that transpired and how you were able to.
I didn't ask. That's the thing. I didn't ask. And a lot of my coworkers were like, you said what? And I was like, well, yeah. I mean, because I come from, luckily I've been producing things in Mexico where I have a say in the casting, or I have a say in the story and the script. And so suddenly I came to here and I thought, well, it's the same, same thing. Like the more I put my heart in everything, the wardrobe, everything. So I said, well, this is what I'll give you. I don't just give you, the acting side of me. I'll give you like a lot of my opinion on storyline and everything. And so I feel it's just about coming from an empowered place rather than asking for permission. And if you have good ideas, they're going to listen to you, because sometimes they're running out of those ideas and they really want that fresh way to look at it.
Yeah, like I'm playing a scientist now in Lucifer, and they mentioned, abuelita in one thing, and I said, you know what? Let's talk about the brothers and where she's from in Detroit. And I don't even ask to speak Spanish. Like whenever I talk to my mom, I just always speak Spanish. So I'll just do it on an alt. Like if my brother is calling, I'll be like, ¿Qué pasa? And they love it. So I think you're right. And I remember even people are very affected by what they see. Mm-hmm. And like on Dexter, I was running around in a bikini most of the time. But I said every time she's on the phone with Dexter, she's going to be studying, because she's a psychology student. So I didn't ask. I went to props. I'm like, look, I want textbooks, I want pens, I want pads. And then when we blocked it, it was already there. And I was in my bikini, showing a little culo. But I'm like, sister, be stunning. Okay, so you do. You
little by little, girl. Yeah, that's right.
That's what we're talking about.
We all started like that.
Wow, these culo shots. Well, I want to segue over to you, Carmen, and working as a casting director, and listening to what they're talking about, and thinking about the trajectory of your career and what you've experienced. And is this conversation that you're hearing here something that is the norm? When is this stuff, when has this been started to change and shift that these women can feel empowered to make these kinds of demands?
Well, all I can think of is that there are no culo shots in my job. And I'm really grateful for that. But I was distracted by that, sorry. I don't know. I mean, I think it must be the norm, but I will say that in my, I don't want to say circle, in sort of my peer group or my even just my close friends, it does feel like the norm because we are all very empowered. We all come from a place of believing that we can get what we want and be heard. So, and that's how I've come up. You know, when this whole thing, how do Latinas experience Hollywood, has been like driving me crazy because I've been thinking about it, and it's just, for me, and I think it probably is for a lot of us, it feels so long, like an independent journey that we're not experiencing. It's like what you said at the beginning, that we're not experiencing it. We're just experiencing our own sort of survival and our own project to project and making those decisions. And for me, so much of it, I mean, let's face it, all of us have times in our career where you're just lucky people are offering you something, so you're saying yes. But for me, when I look back at it, it's about the voices that I can help empower. Right? So it's like changing a character from white to Latina or male to female, or supporting filmmakers who have diversity of thought. I think that for me is very important. And I think I have a unique experience because I'm ethnically ambiguous is the word. And so I've been able to, I don't have a lot of conversations in my super mainstream. I work with Ridley Scott, I work with Steven Soderbergh. That part of me doesn't come up in a very direct way, but when I'm talking about changing a part, I know that they listen in a different way because they don't know how I'm gonna react if they say no. You know, I have had an important director when I brought something up, you know, when I said, you know, we really have to be careful about which way we go with this part. It was a part of a Mexican, and it was actually it hasn't been done yet, but a whole movie that takes place in Mexico with Mexicans, and he was like, well, shoot it in Spain. And I'm like, all right, but we're gonna have to take some things into consideration. He's like, is that really a thing? And I said, yeah, it's a thing. And he was like, okay, great. And then they listened. So, you know, I don't know exactly this whole, my experience in the broader spectrum of it, but my personal experience has just been, I'm who I am. I come from a super diverse background. I didn't only grow up here. Like, none of us really only grew up here. And I'm gonna push for the world's to look like what my world looks like, and what it didn't look like for me when I moved here when I was 11. You know, for me it was Connie Chung. Like, that was I was gonna be Connie Chung, and then Oprah came along, so I was gonna be Oprah. You know, but I knew. Anyway, we could talk more about this other stuff, but yes, that's my answer to that.
And I want to now go on to Yvette, and we talked a little bit earlier about some of the things, the work that you do with the National Media Coalition, Hispanic Media Coalition. And from the point of view of
Sorry, I just have to clap.
Oh yeah, really give it up for them. And the National Hispanic Media Coalition, who advocates for the Latino images and participation. And what kind of evolution and growth have you witnessed? And for the years that you've been working within this realm?
Nowhere near enough. And I'm coming at you from a completely different place, so I love it because they're actresses and casting director, and I'm in marketing and PR. And prior to starting my own company 20 years ago, I was an executive in the studio system and also in the record industry, where I was one of the only brown people in the room, but I'm from New Jersey and I speak English like this, and so, you know, I didn't know that there was something so special about me until the fact that I kept getting called into meetings because people wanted my opinion. And I thought, really, Jersey girl, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, okay. So it was the skin, the color of my skin. And after that kept happening over and over again throughout my career, I was lucky enough to have an incredible mentor who taught me everything and made me a strong, independent woman, and I absolutely adore her for that. And when I got to Hollywood 20-something years ago, unfortunately, I think that we have a long way to go. I don't think there's anywhere near enough change. I'm in the studio side of it, so I get to deal with the networks and the studios, and I'm, exposed to the people that are making these decisions, right? And so what I think has changed is we have changed. We're no longer going to take it. And so we're going to be strong. We have to come together. We can't be Puerto Rican and Mexican and this and that, because they don't look at you as, they don't see that. All they see is brown. So I think what's changed is that we must come together as a community, and we must take our place. And we can no longer be nice and apologize and ask very nice. We just really need to come together. I think that's the change I see in my community of people. The people, we're just done. We're ready. We're ready to take it to the next
I
step.
didn't even know that I was brown.
Oh.
Yeah, I was white all of my life.
Yeah, same.
Until I got here, I knew that now I'm brown now. ¿Verdad? So I said, okay, I'm brown.
I'm brown. I'm really brown.
White. Well, yeah, me too. What? No, you're brown, honey. Ah, bueno.
Yes. Well, I also think that we're talking about the 80s and the 90s when
Right.
And we're talking about I was born in Puerto Rico, but I got here at 3. So I really I grew up here. I'm an American. I mean, we're all Americans. I'm not saying, but so I am brown. So yes, and I completely understand where you're coming from, because I have kids that aren't brown, but they're Latinas, right? So we're all Latinos, but unfortunately or fortunately, you are looked at differently for the color of your skin, and you can pass until you open your mouth and you have an accent.
Right.
Right? And those things happen.
Well, thank you, ladies. And now, because there's such short time, we only have 20 minutes per group, so we have to segue to our next panel. We're going to have some time. If I keep it moving, we'll have some time at the end for some questions, so we can revisit. So we're going to go on to our next video clip, and that'll influence our next panel. And ladies, you stay up here with me, and then the next group will just join us. We'll continue to grow. And by the end of the day, we're going to have an entire studio created up here.
Mi mamá, me parece que para ella yo venía a representar un sueño realizado, que no era exactamente de hacer cine, pero sí de hacer algo como que estuviese fuera del estándar de las cosas posibles para ser una mujer ahí en Salta, ¿no? Digamos, de las carreras que normalmente hacían las mujeres en Salta. Me parece que mi mamá siempre quiso, de una manera quizás infantil y fantasiosa, que tener una vida extraordinaria, y que de alguna manera, aunque mi vida no es extraordinaria, ella se imaginó eso para mí. Y para mí el cine es una construcción, un proceso de pensamiento. Y yo no creo que el pensamiento esté exento de emoción. O sea, no es algo frío, lejano. Para mucha gente mis películas son frías porque no hay música, no veo el sufrimiento romántico que tienen algunas otras películas, pero bueno, es otra cosa. Pero sí lo que creo es que las películas son un proceso de pensamiento donde durante unas 2 horas, hora y media, uno comparte con el espectador no tanto una historia, sino como una forma en que se construyen las cosas.
¿Qué pasa? Que no quiero estar más con nadie que con Isabel. La mamá la va a echar, mami.
¿Por qué?
Porque la mamá dice que le desaparecen las sábanas y las toallas. Y la va a echar. Es mentira.
Toma. Traje que no se va. Algo fresquito, toma. Sí, se van ya. Mira esta mujer cómo está.
Mechita, levántate que va a llover.
Ya voy. Yo me levanto, estoy bien.
¡Mami! ¡La mecha se ha caído!
Yo no quiero ver sangre. No quiero ver sangre, mami, ¿eh?
Yo me levanto sola.
Poner en la silla, mami.
Soltame, Isabel. Soltame, mami, no hagas escándalo. Sevilla, te alejas. ¡Ay! Ay. Ahora aparecen las toallas por todos lados, ¿no?
Mami, anda a traer el auto del jardín.
Déjame vos. Todas las hortensias. ¡Parala! ¡Soltame, Isabel!
Vas a pagar muy caro por tu traición que haces en esta vida. Todo sepa.
Llámalo a todo gringo. Decirle que van para allá. Tu mamá está perdiendo mucha sangre.
Mami, anda a buscar mi vestido de botones. Anda a buscarlo. Que esta india me quiere llevar así a la ciénaga.
There we go. And now I'd like to, okay, let's try it one more time. And now I'd like to invite the next group of panelists up, and we're going to start with Natalia Almada, director. Right over there. Aurora Guerrero, also director. Patricia Regan. And Gabriele Tagliavini. I practiced that so many times. Tagliavini. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. And here are all the actors, here are the directors, the actresses, female. Here we go. We're getting to that studio here. That's right, a few of them. Well, I want to start out with Lucrecia talks about how she talks about being the process, about films being a process of thought, and where you share with the audience the art of constructing a story. When you're approaching your story.
Hello.
So when you're approaching your story to tell, how do you approach the audience in that process? We talk about your process as your artistic process, but in response to what she's talking about, how she involves the audience and thinks of the audience. Patricia, you want to start with that? Yes. Thinking about your audience.
Can you hear me? Yes, hi. I love the audience. I love the audience. And the way I approach, so I do think about the audience, but the way I approach it is that I am the audience. So I am the measure of everything. You know, if I feel, if it makes me think, if it makes me cry, you know, whatever it is, I'm the audience. So the key is to have that very special skill that every now and then I lose, but I normally have, which is to watch what I do for the first time every single time I watch it. You know, so that's the big key, you know, to be able to sit down and become an audience member and not guess what's happening. That's the hard part. So was that the question you asked?
Yeah. Talking about the audience and the consideration of the audience when you make your films, and how you see your audience getting involved with your film. And Natalia, can we pick up with you on that, and how your creative process and how the audience becomes involved with that?
Sure. I think I'm probably the wrong person to answer that question. I don't think too much about the audience, and
which is why I'm asking this.
It's for many things. I think it's a question that's often asked when you come from the periphery, in a sense. It's who's your audience, and it's a loaded question that's often code for I'm not your audience, so who's your audience, right? I don't speak Spanish, so I have to read subtitles. Oh, who's your audience? So that kind of makes me feel a little bit averse. And I also find that one of the most rewarding things about my filmmaking career has been showing my films to such different audiences, right? So high school students in LA, or we were just in South Korea, or all these different places, and you say, well, who's your audience? Well, it's all those different things, different people, and what's interesting is to see how do they connect differently, and what do they understand in the film, and that's rewarding for me. So I hate to think of this kind of limiting concept of pinpointing a demographic as an audience. I think there's a different way of thinking about it. And what I like about what Lucrecia says is that she's less interested in the story as she is in the structure of a story. So how we tell our stories is often what reflects who we are and where we're from, not just the whole concept that you have to have this plot that unfolds in a certain way and has a certain kind of ending is a cultural concept, right? So when we tell our stories, we have to be able to structure them as we think, not as others think.
Thank you. And Aurora, as you're starting up a new story or a new project, what is your creative process, and what are the kinds of things that are influencing how you begin to look at a project or look at a film subject?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm influenced by two things. One is what I've lived and experienced, first and foremost, because that's one of the big reasons why I started to do this and get involved in this, is that I wasn't connecting to most of the stories, or I felt myself forcing myself to connect because there was nothing else that really resonated with me. So I definitely start with personal. And I feel like although my experience is specific, I do feel like that there are a lot of people out there that could connect to what I have to say, especially because it hasn't been reflected. So I do start there, and then I'm definitely impacted by what's happening in the world. So my creativity is constantly like, bzzz, like I'm always like, because the world is so, crazy all the time, prior to Trump, and probably post. So there's a lot that is, making me want to put pen to paper or finger to keyboard. And then as the story starts to come about, if I don't particularly belong to a group that I'm writing about, say undocumented people, because I'm a citizen, so I have that privilege, then I think about how do I connect with the undocumented community to try to have a dialogue very early on, where I'm in conversation with them about the stories that I'm thinking about, and seeing how they're feeling about it, or what's the story that they want to see reflected. And then we start to talk about, well, how else can this process of making this film support whatever work the undocumented community is doing. So I'm very early on talking to communities that I'm a part of, or I want to be in conversation with. And so that's very early on all the way through, and it informs the work. So they are a part of my audience, so I am thinking about audience. But I'm not so much, I don't think I'm writing for them necessarily. There's an organic process that I engage in where I feel like I have to honor my writing spirit, my creative spirit. But I'm also thinking about what I want to say politically, and hoping that what I want to say is smart. So that's part of my process.
And Gabriela, can you talk to us about your process, your creative process?
Well, I'm a Latina and a woman, so I try to make the movies that I want to see, and I try to convince the other people to make those movies. I have one of my best friends calls me the bull. So when I go to Fox Studios, for example, I say, I want to make a Marilyn Monroe movie, but with 3 Latinas. And so I pitched that, and I sold it. Also, for example, I have another project with David Permut, who's a producer who is nominated for many Academy Awards, and it's a story about 2 girls, right, 2 young women. And I go, well, David, how about one of them is Latina? And he goes, well, I don't know any, so I go with my nerd list of, here's Carla, she's represented with WME, her list of movies is this right. So I just go and educate the people that don't know, and of course they can't say no because I'm Latina. They can't otherwise they'd be racist, right? So I kind of use that. And also can't put Latinas in roles that are not necessarily Latinas. Right. For example, I have a project, and the producer is here, and he can tell you he's Korean. He won Cannes for a movie, and I have a project that is about Leonardo da Vinci and the Mona Lisa, and I go, why can't the Mona Lisa be a Latina? So I show him all the pictures of Ana de la Reguera sitting next to him and go, the 3 of them could be Mona Lisa. So I think that to answer your question, I make the movies I want to make, and you just bend the rules. And if we think of Latina directors as the bull in front of all the matadors, the bull comes out, he has no chance. There's 10 guys with swords. But once in a while, the bull kills the matador.
That's great. That's terrific. Thank
I was going to ask you something. I find it funny that you asked us about the audience, because the question is, how do we get a job being Latinas? That's for me always in my head, and I'm sure it's all of us. It's our daily fight. Our entire beings are devoted to getting a job, to fighting it. And then once you get it, to surviving it, because even if you get it, they're gonna make your life impossible throughout, from the first minute to the last. Right. So I was prepared to talk about that, and then the audience, who cares? I don't even think about the audience ever.
taking them on the journey. Well, talk about that. Actually, one of the segue right into working within the studio system and without the studio system. So, like I said earlier, not everybody wants to be not everybody's journey is directly, or their mission is to work in Hollywood. And I was talking earlier with Natalia, and we were talking about how oftentimes your trajectory goes from Sundance Film Festival, getting accolades, and then you get into Hollywood. It's just like this natural path, but not everybody is on that natural path or wants that natural path. And so I think what you're talking about here is, you're looking for work. So you're looking for work all the time, constantly, within the studio system, without the studio. What's your choices?
I feel that I have lost my voice in the last few years in the search of a career, of looking for the job. And I feel like I need to create a number of movies or shows or whatever to create a name so that then I can go back to do my stuff, So that's kind of where I am. And I've been thinking about the Latina and the woman experience before coming here as I was driving. And the problem is being a woman, not being a Latina. That's the main problem that we all here have, I think. And it's very clear, it's very, very clear. As you all, I never realized that I was a woman. It's they who realize that I am a woman, okay? So I feel like I have been using the Latina because, Latina I don't think is a problem anymore because there are like 3 mega Mexican amigos that open up the space for Latinos to come and direct space movies and Harry Potter movies and stuff. So I feel that, thank God, those guys kind of did a service to all Latinos nowadays. We can access that kind of project. The problem is being a woman. So what I've been doing lately is using the Latina angle to get the job that would be for a man, so I can get it. So that's how I'm getting jobs that, let's say the 33, which was meant to be directed by a man because it's 33 minors with drills and stuff like that. Or, I'm doing a show right now that is also like a thriller horror. It should be for a man, but it has a Mexican angle. So that's how I insert myself in those jobs, using the Latina to my advantage. It's like, if you're not Mexican, you're never gonna understand the subject matter. You kind of say that kind of thing. And you say it so many times that they're like, okay, we cannot hire, a New York Jew, to direct a movie about the Latino experience. And so I'm one of the Latinos, so that's how I'm getting it. So anyway, I'm trying to see the advantages of.
We have to work every angle, because none of it's easy, right? Well, I want to reach out again to the makers here and to talk to you guys and ask you about the responsibility that you might feel to actually take on to tell the stories about your culture, your cultural background, or to move outside of it. Like you were saying, the Latinos telling stories about Harry Potter, and we're not talking about immigration stories. We're not talking about the nautical stories. But they're talking about something they're able to do and to tell other types of stories. But as filmmakers, and at this point in your career and life, is there a sense of responsibility that you want to tell the stories that are about your cultural backgrounds, or at least infuse your stories with your cultural background? Gabriela, you want to take that one?
I hate when they send me these projects that are like Latino, and there's like a Latino family, and there's the abuelita, and there's no story. And sometimes it's not even written by a Latino. It's kind of like, the Mexican curious kind of story. And I was like, I prefer go the other way around, have a good story that either I write or somebody writes, and then put Latino actors and actresses in it. And as I said, they don't have to be necessarily a Latino character. It could be an Italian character. Why can't, like they were saying, why can't a Latina be a scientist or anything? So I just go more for the story, and then I make it my own by casting it the way I want it. And of course, it's a responsibility, and it's a responsibility about the message. For me, is very important. That's why I won't do movies about regret or revenge. To me, it's not a novel feeling. I'd rather do movies about love and positive messages that hopefully elevate the world. So that I'd rather do a script that is not that great, but it has a good message, and then I'll work in making it better.
Thank you. Does anybody want to comment on that or say anything? Because if not, I have.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely feel a responsibility. I mean, I was born here, I come from working class background. My parents are immigrants, struggled a lot, daily fighting. I've experienced, all the isms here. And I feel like it's kind of a luxury to not tell stories that are political or have some social commentary or want to shift culture and want to say something. I don't feel like I came into this for that. I came into this wanting to shift things, wanting to change things, wanting to empower us, wanting to do all of that. And it's not the easy road. It's not easy. People don't want to produce your shit. People don't want to, it's real.
You're angry.
Yeah, but I've been angry for a while, and I'm good with it. I'm good with it. Yeah.
Damn right.
I'm totally good with it, but yeah, I mean, it continues to motivate me when we don't see people of color in front of, on screen. We don't see them behind the camera. We just don't get that at all. So I want to tell those stories, and I want those complex stories. I don't want that just because they're, they have a brown cast that I want to do it. Like, it has to be smart. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not here to do the paycheck. The paycheck is good. I'm not gonna lie. Like, of course, I have a family, but I came into this for those reasons, and it is what drives me and fuels me. And so, so I feel like I'm not alone. There are many filmmakers that feel that maybe responsibility maybe is not the right word, but they feel that los ganas, and that drive and that reason why they're doing what they're doing. So that's what I'm trying to do,
And go ahead.
Oh, you heard me? No, I'm saying about the struggle that is just kind of frustrating. That I've been an actress since I was 9, and then I still think that I'm struggling. So I'm a struggling actress still, because I still don't get the job that I want. And sometimes, as you said, well, I don't have a family, but I do have myself to pay the bills, So so sometimes you have to prostitute yourself in that way and do things sometimes that you don't really love, or commercials or this and that, just because you need to eat. And at least I'm not selling quesadillas, not saying that that's wrong, but I'm still doing my craft, what I love, and what I've been doing my entire life. So, but it's still struggling the entire time, And actually the last 2 movies that I've done, one was because Patricia is like one of my best friends, so she puts me in everything she wants. That is suspicious. That's a little bit suspicious. No, but the other 2, it was supposed to be also an American white woman, and they changed it, which I think it's awesome that they can think outside the box. Not only our managers and our team, managers and agents, but also the directors are more open to my accent too, because it's always something. It's always, oh, you are not too Mexican. Why don't you have your hair like it's not black? It's like, well, no, that's not all we have in Mexico. No, we have also salons there. You know, so it's you're struggling the entire time, and it's kind of frustrating. But also, you know, to be honest, as she said, is like the positiveness of the whole thing is that it keeps you working and keeps you struggling and trying to. And your life is like this because I don't have it for real. I don't have nothing, you know, there solid, and that makes me wake up every single day and say, I have to get out of here and go struggle.
And go find a job.
Go fight for the.
I have to switch off with you. Oh, sorry, lost this. Well, yes, go ahead, Yvette.
Yeah, is this working? Yes. In terms of responsibility, actually, I just wanted to talk about that because I do feel like I have a responsibility. I live in the house that Robert Rodriguez built. Robert Rodriguez, the Mexican-American filmmaker, he was my client. I worked on all of his films, so I have a very good life. Thank you, Robert. I also have a successful company that turned 20, so thank you. So I've worked for the studios, and I've worked with great filmmakers and actors, et cetera, and now my company turned 20, I turned a certain number, and now I feel like I can no longer, not that I did, because I have a big mouth, if anybody knows me, knows that that's true, but now I 100% feel responsible to say what I have to say, when I have to say it. I don't work for a studio, I don't work for a network, I don't work for an agency, nobody can fire me. And so right now I feel a responsibility for us to see ourselves reflected, my children, my family, for us to see ourselves reflected in a multidimensional way on television and film, but not only just to inspire my community, the Latino community, but what happened last year is Hollywood and the media must take a little bit of responsibility. Okay, so that's why I'm fired up, because people are uncomfortable seeing people that are different. So when you watch television and you watch films, that's where you learn, right? That's where you're entertained, but you learn about things, about people and about different communities. And so for me, my responsibility is to talk to my friends in Hollywood, producers, directors, executives, and explain to them in the nicest way possible that they have a really big responsibility. They really do, because, I mean, we're you know, our country is, this is a very, 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 what's the word I'm looking for, because I shouldn't curse. This is a very difficult time in our country, and I feel like the media and Hollywood absolutely 100% can make a difference and bringing this community, this country together, and that's by what they put on the big and small screen.
Absolutely, thank you.
I think also, I think it starts, I remember there was, you know, there's a way for all of us to connect with other people. Every time I see an amazing Latin American movie, I send it to WME and I say, you have to see this amazing Ana Cristina Barragan. She's an Ecuadorian director. She reminds me of Lucrecia Martel or Lynn Ramsey. So then they connect her, and then suddenly she can be directing something else. Or I know Xavier Dolan, suddenly, you know, he's in a festival in Cannes, and now he's directing, you know, Hollywood A-list actors, and I feel like it's our responsibility to share amazing work, to make Hollywood better, and to therefore also have all this diversity. And even if it's in the smaller scale on a TV show, I beg them to not put subtitles when I speak Spanish, because that says you need to be speaking Spanish to people. When you're saying something in Spanish and you're catering to that community, saying, don't worry, like this doesn't need to be subtitled. This is something that's happening in the US a lot. You should be able to know what she's saying more or less. I think is so powerful. And they did it for the first time, I think, the third season, and it wasn't just like a mami or a papi. It was like a whole paragraph of Spanish. And I know that that's like a small level, but everything that we do, all of us on this panel, really does make a difference.
Thank you.
And everyone else in here.
And I've got my red light on over here, but I really want to just kind of turn this idea of responsibility around and kind of flip it up on all of you ladies here. And we talk about responsibility for what we want to say, but what's the responsibility for the generation behind us? We have all struggled a lot, and a lot of us have struggled when there weren't the mentors who were actually pulling us up or giving us the support. Today, we are those mentors. We are those ones who can create a space for the younger generation. So in that vein, in that idea of the responsibility that we all have, how do you look at that, and what do you do to fulfill that responsibility if in fact you feel you have that? And I will start. You're shaking your head, so I'll start with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's how we're going to make change, you know? Like, I mean, I still feel like a baby still coming up, and I was really blessed that people like Patricia Cardoso, who is my active mentor, who opened up the door when she made Real Women Have Curves. I was assisting her, and she was super generous. Like she was one of the first people that allowed me on set, and I saw what the power of mentorship, because I experienced it in terms of that generosity of being like, Aurora, whatever you want to learn, aquí está. Like, just ask, be there, be present. She was never like hoarding or nervous or, you know, like territorial, like I've worked hard to be here. No, she totally got it. And I came into filmmaking inspired by collectives of women of color that I would read about and learn about. And I was in the youth movement in San Francisco. There was a lot of collectivity, and I understood that power of being in community, and that is power, is being in community, and not that this individual person makes it and represents us all. That's just, we got to be done with that, right? We need to be as a community present in this space. And I also experienced that through Ava DuVernay, who extended her hand and allowed me to be a director on Queen Sugar. And she is phenomenal. Like she's so intentional about everything she does. And I feel like we have to be conscious about what we're doing in every step, however we can do it. Mentorship can look at many, many different ways, and it can impact people many, many different ways. But I am definitely seeing it with my African-American sisters, the way they look out for each other, and they're extending their hand to me too. I'm like, we need to do this, folks, in our community and across community, you know, building solidarity with other communities. So.
And I think to Carla's point, like, you really do have a lot of power. It's such a small world. And, you know, you don't have to be best friends with, you know, Guillermo del Toro to really make a difference. You know, in your own small way, you can really make such a difference. Like, I really think you're affected by what you see, and I keep saying that, and I'm involved in this charity called Most, and I realized that when these girls are watching TV, they never really saw a whole family of Latinos, but that was so personal, but also very universal. So Justina Machado and I, she's a Chicago girl, I've known her forever, and she's like, why don't we rent a bus for these girls and bring them to a live taping of Norman Lear's show, and they can meet Rita and Norman. And it was such a small thing. You know, it's like renting a bus for 80 girls or whatever. And they spent 6 hours just watching Justina crush it and Rita Moreno crush it. And here's, you know, living legend, and Norman Lear, another living legend. And they saw their stories. And so 5 of them were like, I want to write TV, I want to write stories. And it's just something so simple that if they see it, they can believe it. But if all they see is the guy who has the car, the guy who has, you know, the girl is doing X, Y, and Z, like, it's such a, I think filmmaking, movies, TV are the most empathetic form of storytelling. And if you make someone laugh, you make someone cry, then they will listen. And to me, film and TV can like really change the world, you know? So I think that it is a big responsibility, but every single person, especially now with social media, you have so much power. And so I think of, instead of waiting for, oh, when this happens, I'll have the platform. When that happens, like, we have the platform, and you'd be surprised. So definitely, definitely, definitely feel empowered. And I think that the world is finally catching up to thinking, wow, we really want to see ourselves reflected. And now that the cat's out of the bag, like, the world is your oyster. You don't need to rent a red camera. You can literally shoot a movie on your iPhone and win at Sundance. And that's such a cool thing, you know? So anyway, there you go.
And Patricia, you want to say something? And my red light hasn't started blinking, but it hasn't gone off. And so
yeah, very quickly.
We're going to ignore it for just 2 more seconds, 2 quick ones, and then we'll have to move on.
Talking about responsibility, my biggest responsibility is to be very good, because if I fail, everyone pays. All the women behind me, around me, and all the Latinas. Like, we are held to a standard that has nothing to do with anything else. So if a guy messes up in a movie and it's a flop, you're not gonna say, I'm never gonna hire another man again to direct a movie. But if a woman fails, we all pay. So my responsibility is to work so hard and to be better than any guy, so that I can just keep opening the doors. That's what I do. I suffer a lot.
Gabriela, I'll let you have the last word.
Yeah, I think I also think I have a responsibility of not only changing what's in front of the camera, but what's behind the camera, because I agree with Patricia that it's very, very difficult more to be a woman director than a Latino director. So I now have a TV show, and I started getting the idea. I team up with a Latina showrunner, and I was telling Patricia, you know, what if the 3 directors in the show are 3 Latina women? It's about 3 women, why not? So that's what I'm gonna go pitch it. You know, I'm gonna go pitch when I pitch the show, and that's, you know, because it starts with behind the camera. If we have Latina writers, Latina directors, then it will be no question of who's in front of the camera, because we're telling the stories that we want. And I had a lot of racist stories. I'm just gonna tell one little one. I was directing a movie in Utah, and it was the first day of the shoot. I go to the bathroom, and this woman from accounting comes out. I'm so happy. I'm directing Sharon Stone. I think I made it. She's amazing. I said action already. I go to the bathroom, and this woman from accounting comes to me and says, please change the toilet paper. I swear to God, true story. And I said, I'm the fucking director. True story.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, on that note, we're going to cue our next video clip.
Yo creo que cuando yo pienso en los 90s y en esa 8 o 9 años que no pude levantar ninguna película, era real. Yo, en el medio en que yo estaba filmando en 35 milímetros, con el país en crisis económica, sin fondos de financiamiento, etcétera, realmente, si no era imposible, era casi imposible levantar una película en ciertos periodos de mi vida. Pero ahora no es así. Ahora no es así, no hay pretexto. Si uno quiere hacer cine, uno agarra y lo hace. Armas un colectivo, te haces de la mínima tecnología y arrancas y sobre el camino vas viendo cómo sigues y cómo terminas, y si tienes la tenacidad, el rigor, el talento, lo vas a terminar.
¿Ves la diferencia? Como eres mujer verano, te van muy bien los colores definidos. Los rojos, rosas violentos, verdes, acuas. Y si ya andas muy atrevida, hasta de negro. Yo, en cambio, soy mujer otoño. Prohibidos los naranjas. Pero eso sí, mira, los grises y los platas me van de lujo.
Oye, pero ¿no será demasiado? Oigo, para ir a los muelles. Vayan a creer que soy
¿Qué?
Que piensen que estoy de ofrecida o que ando buscando otra cosa.
¿Un hombre? Ay, Julia, por Dios, no me salgas con esas. ¿Tienes miedo de parecer puta o de gustarle a los hombres? Ay, total. Pues si ya te da mucha pena, dices que andas buscando a tu primo. Así la gente ya ni se fija. Ahí estás. Ay, no. Siquiera así.
Perdóneme, ¿podría informar en qué muelle está el barco griego?
¿Barco griego? ¿Cómo se llama el barco?
No sé, pero me dijeron que es el único griego que hay.
Martínez. Búsqueme el barco griego, por favor. Está usted muy guapa, señorita. Está usted muy guapa.
Gracias.
¿Cómo es la bandera griega?
Por el momento no tenemos información, señorita.
And now I'd like to invite the ladies up for this last panel. Ligia Villalobos. Fina Torres. And Mónica Reina. Now I think we really do have all the components up here of a solid studio.
I just tweeted them.
Well, this last panel section of our three panels, we wanted to talk about impact and impact that the filmmakers can have and how they can manage and take charge of your creative output. I'm hesitant a little because I had a conversation earlier with Monica about the work that she does in Mexico and the way she got her start in film, and with her desire to be in control of the images, to be in control of the kinds of projects you did and the work that you did. Monica, can you talk to us a little bit about how you started out as a cinematographer, studying as a cinematographer, and because you can take it away, it's your story.
Right. Well, yeah, I went to film school, very unknown film school, until, like you mentioned, other people like Cuarón and Chivo started winning Oscars. And all I wanted to do when I was in film school was become a cinematographer. So when I left film school, I was working as a cinematographer in the 90s. And I would arrive to the set and they're like, oh, ya llegó la productora. Producer is here. And I'm like, no, I'm the cinematographer, I'm the DP. And people were like, and everybody was scared. The gaffer, the staff, and how can this woman is gonna tell me where to put the camera, the lights? And it was like that every time. Commercials, anything that I was shooting. And this enraged me. And one time, I remember I went home, arrived 3, 4 a.m. after 24-hour shoot. And I was like, I swear to myself, one day I will own my own company and I will have the cameras to shoot whatever I want, whenever I want, and it doesn't matter if I'm Martian, if I'm lesbian, whatever I am, but a woman, I don't need to apologize to anybody. And that's how I started. So 17 years ago, I started my company, Simplemente, and we were producing initially little documentaries and TV shows and whatever we could with the cultural TV stations in Mexico. And then life, because I love cameras so much and I love technology, kind of pushed me to learn more about technology, which filmmaking is beautiful because you have the storytelling and also you have the science of cameras and it's like a perfect melt. So I started helping people, advising how to make your movies easier, better, with less money, and precisely what you just said. I mean, we have now the possibility to help filmmakers shoot anything they want, however they want, with the technology that it was impossible. 20 years ago, it was no way. I mean, when I was in film school, we were shooting with 16 mil and each can was so valuable. We had to think, we had to suffer every foot. And now we just have, like you said, mobile phones even, but it's amazing times. And what we've been doing in Mexico is trying to democratize the means of production so more people that are incredibly talented and creative can do more stuff. And of course, this impacting like all the women in Mexico that we're trying to make a difference. And that's like in a nutshell, like my almost 20 years after I left film school.
Isn't that great? That's truly how you can control your creative output. And you know, when they're making it difficult for you, just go out and create a company for yourself.
I'll interject that thanks to Monica's company, I was able to make my first fiction feature film because they provided all the cameras, editing equipment, everything we needed, you know, with no questions asked. Not like, who's your audience? Or
I just want to add something because I consider myself like a cheerleader of the projects we help produce. And I am so proud because we just got like a quote from like the most famous Mexican critic who told that Natalia's movie is a masterpiece of minimalist Mexican cinema. And that made me so proud and I'm so happy. Please.
And just quickly, this isn't a question, but just a comment. Do you do co-productions? And you've been working a lot in the co-production field as well. So I think that's also something that we have to look at as we are looking at, you know, how do Latinas, how do we work within Hollywood? How are we within Hollywood? And how can we make the films that we want to make? And it's not always within this particular structure. And I think the co-productions, that there's a lot of variety up here. We could have a whole other panel about that we wanted to talk about earlier about co-productions, but that's something that's really important to know about. The other thing I want, it's kind of an awkward segue, but again, sort of keeping control of our vision and keeping control of our stories and how we want to talk about, what we want to talk about, and how to protect our stories through the pipeline. And Ligia, I wanted to send this towards you and ask you about how vigilant you've had to be as you've shepherded projects through the pipeline to make sure that your story stays intact, how that process has worked and what you've had to do to maintain that.
Well, I mainly work within the studio system and the network system. So keeping that vision intact is almost impossible. And I would even say that even when you're working in an independent film, there's a lot of people with a voice about what they think the movie should be or what they think the television show should be. And so what you try to do is just do the best job that you possibly can do in the job that you are hired to do. And whenever you can speak out about something, you do. And whenever you can't, you realize that you're there as a person who has just been hired to do the job. But there are times when, and you can also be replaced. I'm mainly a writer. And in the film world, much more than in television, you can be replaced very easily. In the last 2 years, I've actually done 5 rewrites on other writers' work. So there were writers that were replaced by me. So I know that at any point I can be replaced by another writer based on the work that I do. But I have had both experiences, actually. I've had, in the case of my independent film, La Misma Luna, which Patricia directed, it was a very collaborative experience. And I had a very strong voice in where the end of the script ended. And then there were other, the film that I did after La Misma Luna was a movie called Firelight, which was for ABC and Hallmark Hall of Fame. And it was a story about women in prison and how a firefighting program helped them to have a skill so that they wouldn't have to come back into the prison system. And it's based on a true story. 90% of the women that go through that program don't come back to prison versus the women who don't go through the program, over 90% of them come back to prison. So it was like an important story, right? But it was a Hallmark Hall of Fame movie. They were not going to deal with some of the characters that I wanted to include. like a woman being raped by her father. That's just not what Hallmark does. And so I had to really think about what are the things that are completely vital to me about this story being told, and understanding that it was going to be on primetime television and that it was going to be told by Hallmark Hall of Fame, which at the end of the day want to sell Hallmark cards, right? So they don't want to have a rape, in other words, in the movie. But at that point, then, the question that I had to ask myself, what is most important? Is it getting my way, or is it getting the message out of what these programs within the prison system can actually accomplish? And being in television also, and in a situation like that, one night, 8.5 million people saw that movie that would not have seen it otherwise in the big screen. So you battle the battles that you need to battle, and then you really need to think about what are the things that are most important. It's more important that this movie actually gets on the air and that it gets produced. It's also really important that a female writer wrote that movie, that a female director, Darnell Martin, produced that movie, that Alicia Keys, a female, produced that movie. Like, there's so many other things that you need to look at, that sometimes having 100% of your vision is not the number one priority in terms of what you want to do.
Thank you. That's great. The strategic compromise. Lucretia talked
Every
about...
day of my fucking life is a compromise.
I'm trying to keep it really PC. Language, I'm like biting my tongue over here. Chrissy talks about the film as being an opportunity to be political because it can be used to break perceptions. And Fina, I'd like to know if you could speak to that and some of the work that you've done about being
I don't understand the question. I'm sorry.
About films being political.
Politics. Meaning politics, like
yes, has the opportunity to
like
be
government
political.
politics, or politics within the industry, because there are two different things.
Which one would you like to challenge today?
Well, I've tried to keep that idea on my head. How do Latinas experience Hollywood? So I can talk about my experience here.
Please.
I'm Venezuelan, and I started in France, and I made my movies in France, in Venezuela. So I was very much a very, very hardcore, independent art movie director. When you are an art movie or independent movie director, the only limitation you have is the lack of money. So that is the only obstacle to your liberty to express what you want. So I made some movies before I came to Hollywood, and I made a movie called Celestial Clockwork that was selected in Sundance and in Toronto, and I got my little moment of fame. So they invited me to Hollywood with many projects, and I said, wow, this is so easy. I never thought of coming to Hollywood before. And I came here like with the red carpet, like invited by everybody, like many proposals from studios. And I said, this is so easy. Why didn't I think of this before? They treat you so well. Finally, I accepted a movie from Fox Searchlight called Woman on Top with Penelope Cruz. And they were adorable with me. I said, oh, the sky is blue. Oh, how smart you are. Why did I go to France? This is so great. And then, and everything was like a dreamlight. Everything was beautiful. Everything was great until the movie came out. And when the movie came out and didn't do the numbers they expected, that was it. And then I really met the real Hollywood. That is an industry, that is a hardcore, that is very difficult. There are rules, it's very complex. And the best of the learning I got is that in Hollywood, you have to spend more time in politics than in a creative thing, because you have to learn how to manage the producer, the executive producer. It's very complex. So I am not criticizing. I think I respect the industry. It's an industry. It's a capitalistic industry. So what is important is the market. What is important is how you sell a movie. That is the truth. You cannot tell yourself like I did before, like, oh, art and the importance of authenticity. And, you know, if I make a movie with a Brazilian character, the actress has to be Brazilian, and we have to put Brazilian music, and, you know, it doesn't matter, because as somebody said before, I related to everything every of this wonderful woman said. You know, like, if you're not Venezuelan or Mexican, you're brown.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're blonde or white, you're brown because you're Latina, so that's it. So if you're Brazilian, it doesn't matter to put salsa music because it's Latino, you know? So, you know, it was fascinating for me. I really got like, it was a very strong and humbling process. And I do feel that things have changed, are changing slowly. From the moment I came here in 2000 to today, 2017, things have changed. There are more women working on the movies. Women are heroes in action movies. 20 years ago, that didn't exist. You know, I think the audiences are bored of man in action. Now they want to see women. It's much more interesting to see, you know, like whoever, all these great actresses doing like, bah, bah, bah. So I think there's a change. And of course, we have some kind of responsibility, but we cannot take all over ourselves. Why? Because there's an audience, there's money inside. People, producers, they want their money back. They want profit. So they're always terrified when you say, oh, let's put a Latino as a main character, a Latino woman. Oh my God, who's going to buy that? Who's, you know, who audience are we going to direct that? You know, when I chose Penelope Cruz to make Woman on Top, she was unknown in that moment here. She had never made an American movie. She was very famous in Europe. She was nobody here. And they said to me, you have to take Jennifer Lopez. And I said, but this is Woman on Top. Jennifer is too strong. We need Sylvester Stallone to be a bit, you know. And they went like, who is Penelope Cruz? And I said, this is Penelope Cruz. So I showed, you know, bits and pieces of movies, and she's, you know, she's like a Latino Audrey Hepburn. So finally, you know, they got into this discussion with Jennifer that I adore. I love her. It's not a problem. She said, you have to fit the character with the actor. And she, for $15,000, they couldn't get the deal. So then they turned to me and said, okay, let's see who's this Penelope. I said, she's going to be a huge star. And they hired her, and then the movie, it was a funny movie, it was a comedy, no pretension, but it didn't work. They expected too much, and it didn't work, so I was put into the closet, you know? So it's hard. I think it's very complex. We cannot simplify, like we have the responsibility. I don't think so. I think I relate the more to Patricia. I think the responsibility is to do your work as best as possible, because behind you, there are many women who will get, you know, if you don't do it well, will get the bad, you know, the consequences of your failing. So I think that we have a lot of things to do, but I think you have to be very ambitious in the right way. You have to be very clear about the rules in Hollywood, very clear. Don't lie to yourself. That's the way it is. It's the way it is, and do your best, the best you can do. And compromise if you can. If it's not against your principles, you can compromise. If it's against your principles, you cannot compromise. Well, I can't. Maybe somebody else can, but I can't. So I think things are moving on. I am very, very esperanzada. How do you say that? Hopeful. I'm full of hope that everything is going to change.
Could I just talk a little bit about politics on the
Go ahead. My little light's still on.
I think in general, like if we can talk about politics on the other side of your question, is that I think one of the things that has served me well is that I have no ego of where my stories are told. And I think a lot of times, especially filmmakers, are so eager to tell films. And the reality is that Hollywood is not making Latino films. They're not. I just taught a film development class. I teach at Cal State LA. A lot of my students are here today. And one of the classes was about, we broke down all of the major studios and the films that they had made, and then 3 mini studios. And out of the 7 studios that we looked at, not a single one had made a Latino film in all of 2016. And so one of the things that I do think we need to consider as content creators, whether you're a director or a writer or even an actor, is that sometimes you have to open different doors in order to tell your stories. So I've gone from working in primetime television to preschool. And my agent told me not to take that job. My lawyer told me not to take that job. My manager told me not to take that job. That show was Go Diego Go. It was on the air for 3 years. I did 60 episodes of the show. And politically, I was able to put a young kid who was a scientist, who was teaching kids Spanish. That is political to me.
Absolutely.
And so if you focus on just film, and I know we're at the Academy, so nothing wrong with film. Firelight would have never been able to be made as a feature film. The last movie that I did about Kevin Durant's mother, where I wanted to tell a story about a single mother who got her kid to college and another kid to the NBA, that movie would have never been made as a feature film. So I think part of our responsibility is like, get rid of the ego and really think about where are the places that your stories can be told. Because with so many places where stories can be told, there are the viewers that can get to those stories.
Thank you. Thank you. I am going to have to wrap it up, and we're going to do Q&A, but did you have a comment, Natalia? You were holding your...
Well, I think the other side to what she's saying is also looking for financing and funding in other places. So, for example, the American system in Hollywood, it's all investment-based, it's private money, whereas in Mexico, we have a completely thriving industry right now. Tons of films being made, and it's because we have these new government funds. And it's a completely different model that doesn't necessarily look at the box office as the measure of success. So, for example, for someone like me, that I make art films and I'm not going to appeal to a mass audience, like I can't succeed in the Hollywood model. But there is the Mexican model, for example, and there's also the French and the Germans who have their funding that's coming from the state, not from private money, and it's looking for a different kind of return. And I think it's important that we open up those doors and say, well, maybe one day Hollywood will decide that they like the kinds of films I make, right? But maybe I don't have to change my films to fit into Hollywood.
Absolutely.
Can I say something really quick?
Yes, Gabriela.
I have a new movie coming out in 3 weeks, so if you want more female directors, go buy your ticket, because like she said, if the movie makes money, they'll hire more female directors, like she said. So it's called How to Break Up with Your Douchebag. Cómo cortar a tu patán, and it opens October 13 in the United States and Mexico. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Just a little question.
Absolutely.
Of all these magnificent women here, who of these women are in the academy, a member of the academy? Who is in a member academy?
Raise your hands high. Let's see. Let's see this.
Let's hope more Latino women are getting to the academy. Exactly. So if somebody wants to sponsor me, I would be very happy. Thank you very much.
And 5 or 10 years ago, we didn't have this. Yeah. And 5 or 10 years ago, we couldn't have filled this stage the way we are today. I am so taken aback. And when I was preparing for this event, just looking at the credits and the amount of work cumulatively that is represented here on this stage, it's amazing, it's humbling, it's inspiring, absolutely. I want to thank all of you very much. We are going to do Q&A, but we have to take a photograph now, I'm told. A group photo real quick because Natalia has to go catch a plane. So is that right? And is someone going to put this together, or do I do this? Okay, let's all stand up. I'm a wrangler now as well, so come on in. What's that? Un poco más para afuera. You can see over here? Great, thank you all very much.
So Patricia on the panel and also Patricia Cardoso are both student academy.
I'm sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have microphones at the end of the center aisles. If you have a question, please make your way to the microphone.
Is this on? I want to just acknowledge right now that both Patricia Cardosa and Patricia Regan came up through Student Academy Award winners. And that's how they were groomed and came up and now are a part of the Academy. So we need to acknowledge that and honor that. So now we're going to open it up to take questions from the audience. And we have a much longer line on this side. So what's going on with you guys over there? All right, we're going to go ahead and start with you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I wanted to make a question that probably all of you can answer, but Carmen Cubas, you're the casting director here. I'm a new actress in LA. I've been moved here 2 years ago. And my dream is to tell stories bigger than the human brain that don't sell sex. And that's what Hollywood wants to see. And I saw the OA, and I don't have words to what that says. And I write stories like that for myself, and I'm trying to get them out there. But what advice would you give me to get myself not to be a Latino actress that sells culo, you know, and talk about things that are bigger than the mind of the human brain?
I think the thing that you said about writing your own material is the key, honestly, the key that can drive you every single day. Obviously, as an actor, certainly starting out, certainly having just moved here, you are having to go on the auditions that exist, right? And that also depends on if you have an agent, if you have a manager, and when you get to that point, convincing them, like these women did, that, you know, not everything on the page that says, not everything that you need to be sent in for needs to be Latino. So I think just those two things, and just really moving forward, I feel like the filmmakers can speak, or the creators can speak more to the writing your own way in.
I say work really, really, really hard. So that's it, which means you're in LA, take classes, join groups, put scenes with your friends. Like, you have to be, there's so much competition. You have to fight so hard to get it, but you have to prepare. That's the key.
And actually, the other thing too about the working hard, when you do get a part, it really is for all of us, I think, we have to be the best in the room. We have to be the person that everyone else sees works very hard. And then those people know you, and then it sort of spreads from there. And you know, it is about reputation. It is about a circle that you create. It's about all of these things, for sure.
Thank you so much. And we're going to take a question from you over here.
Hi. Thank you so much for providing this forum. It's really wonderful, and I'd like to thank my professor, Lihia, for making it possible for us to be here. My name is Marie Francoise Theodore, and I'm African American, but I'm Haitian. but I was raised and born in Chicago. And I've been here. Oh, Chicago? Yeah, Northwest. I've been out here for like 5-6 years. I'm a writer, but I'm also an actor and a filmmaker. And I met Natalia actually years ago at a Women in Film thing. We were part of we won an award together, but she's gone. I was going to say hi. But my question was mainly about something interesting happened to me recently with a casting. They were casting an Afro-Latina, and then they changed it and they made it that she had to speak fluent Spanish. And I have a feeling that it was because they were getting a lot of Latinas who basically were white. And I know when you get here, you're brown, but it's not the same thing. So this is all very beautiful and I love it, but I don't see anybody from Puerto Rico or the DR or from Cuba. Okay, good. From Cuba, and I'm Haitian, but you know, me and the DR, we share the same island. So, and I just want to ask about like where the Gina Torres's,
Are you talking about on this panel or?
This panel or just in general, because sometimes when people say Latina, they still, to me, go for lighter skinned, white skinned. I very rarely see a darker skinned, well, identifiably black woman up there. And I miss that. And I don't know if that can change in casting. I mean, I'm a writer, so I will do my part. But I don't know what thoughts you guys may have on it. If you notice, if it's a thing in the Latino community, I don't know if it's talked about, if it's a, you know.
Okay. Does anybody want to speak to that or have anything to say?
I can say something.
Go for it.
Please.
Work hard.
Like with everything else, like being a woman or being Latina or being a black Latina, it's about showing yourself and, you know, so we want them around. As soon as we find them, we always try to include them too, so that people understand that there's all the colors of the world in the Latin world. So I'm all for that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
And I do think that Hollywood sees it's still very binary, everything. It's women, it's men. But there's, you know, why am I forgetting the name? Is it Transparent on Amazon, which I'm watching the new season and loving right now? You know, it's these people having voices that sort of shatter those ideas, brown and white, and just even in the brown, you know, we know the difference. It's up to us to sort of keep pushing everyone else to understand what that is.
And
Right.
I think,
Go ahead.
Sorry, is this on? Yeah. You just saying it right now in the room, for example, I'm producing a movie and there's one of the main characters, the director said, what if she's an Afro-Latina? And to me, that was like, wow, I agree with you. There's not enough of that. And I think just speaking it, voicing it, and even if you're doing an audition and you're doing an audition for a different role in a movie that you've been able to read or a script that you've been able to read, and maybe just hinting like, oh, you know, it would be really interesting to see if, you know, have you guys thought of this? Everyone just wants to hear a new idea, and I think that if it hasn't happened enough, people are probably eager to do it. They just don't have that in their periphery to think about it. So I think voicing it is, you know, a very important
I think
thing.
you're absolutely right, and voicing is crucial because oftentimes it's just one of those aha, of course, but no one has ever said it. No one brought it out.
And I think Zoe Saldana is like one of the most.
Yeah, but it can't just be her.
Movie stars.
I know.
No, I know, but I
she
think
made a
she's-
career playing African American women.
Yeah.
It kind of became an issue. Yeah, but that's.
But she
done.
speaks fluent Spanish.
Yeah,
and she speaks
I
it
know.
really well. And
Yeah.
So I feel like
the DR.
people like, you know, when you reference a really successful.
Yeah,
you know, and
she's A-lister.
Yeah.
AAA. Yeah.
I just want to say something. I 100% agree with you. It's something that I'm always aware of whenever I'm speaking to anyone. It's really representing all Latinos. So if you think about Spanish language television, Telemundo and Univision, first of all, everybody's white there, right?
Yep.
So that's our first hurdle, right? With our own community.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and if you think about the East Coast and the bloggers and the journalists, right? Because the kick-ass journalists on the East Coast, a lot of them are Afro-Latinas. They're great. They're writing in English and they're telling the best stories. So step by step, but I hear you. I 100% am aware of that, and that's something that I think just step by step we'll get there, but yeah, it's a problem.
Judy Reyes.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so we're going to
Thank
move.
you.
Thank you. Thank you for your question, for bringing that up.
Hi, related to that question, just a comment. Zoe Saldana, who is in Guardians of the Galaxy, which was the #3 movie at the box office so far this year, her father is Haitian and Dominican Republic, and her mother is from Puerto Rico. So she actually is an African Latina. People don't know that, so if you'd like say, hey, like this, there's an example, that might help you out. So people don't associate that. So cool.
Thank you for that clarification.
Of course.
And your question is?
Yes, all right, so my question is, you mentioned that anyone with an iPhone can go make a movie, getting together your friends. Are there Latinas who are using the internet to basically upload their films on Vimeo, their short films, and getting a following and showing their craft there? If the doors to Hollywood are not open yet, we all can just go to the internet and upload content that we've created on our own and show that we can do it. Are people using that? And if not, why not?
Anybody want to take that?
That's a really good question. I mean, I feel like that there are Latinas who are creating outside of the system and using new technologies to do that. And they're using different platforms to do that as well. But you might not have heard of them because these platforms maybe don't have the same exposure as, the traditional platforms do. But I think that people are definitely engaging these spaces and trying to figure out how to use those platforms to get more exposure and to get more audiences to those platforms. But I don't, I still feel like there's a lot more room for us to engage those new technologies. Like that we still as a community we need more resources and encouragement with our young people to explore these technologies, to be able to tell their stories with these technologies, to inspire them to use these platforms to be able to tell their stories. I think there's still a lot more of that education that needs to be passed on, those resources for that education to happen. So I think that's also part of it.
And I think there's YouTube Red is starting up their platform. They're going to, I hope what I'm saying is not like top secret information, but I think it's right? It's known. They're gonna do their own. So, yeah, and Facebook, and I think there's there's a bunch of them. Apple, Google, yeah. So they're all looking for whether it's cell phone things or people that have a voice or have something new or have something fresh or have a point of view. And there's also blogs. I remember seeing a short, it's like a 2-minute short that I think Lynn Ramsey did, and it's a blog of just videos uploaded every day, and you can submit videos to those type of things, and that's where work is seen, and maybe it's not publicized as much as other things, but there's definitely an array of platforms out there for people like that.
There's 2 girls that make this show. I think it's called Two Brown Girls, and got picked up by HBO.
Like that?
Yeah. So that's the story right there. It's hilarious. If you see it, I loved it. So it happens. If you make something good, it would find a way.
I would also mention that it depends on what you're talking about, whether you were specifically referring to scripted program versus non-scripted programming. But if you're talking about anything, I would say that Me Too, which is a network online, is specifically for Latinos, targeting Latinos, content made by Latinos. And Beatriz Acevedo Grive is the president and CEO of that particular network. So there's a lot of Latino content creators that put their material in that network. And there's Spanish and as well as English. So you might want to check out Me Too online, which is 24 hours of just Latino content.
Awesome.
Thank you. And now we'll take the question over here from the brave woman who brought her child.
Yes, that's me. Well, the babysitter decided that Saturday was her day.
Welcome.
So whatever. I'm here anyway because I couldn't miss this, and I'm very grateful and thankful to all you guys and to Randy and to Lourdes for putting this together. And this is so galvanizing, you guys, and it really resonates with me. A lot of what you guys are saying, in specific with like the advocacy, the inner advocacying for one another inside. That's it, you know, through the pipeline. Authenticity is a lot what I'm hearing about. To being, you know, true to not only the content and authentic to what you're representing, but in specific for how it's conveyed and you know, saying, listen a second, you know, I have something to say about what my either character is or how it's on, you know. Anyway, I'm excited. So this is great. And my name is Jasmine Campbell, and I am from the Bronx. And I came to LA about a decade ago, and I was behind an agency, you know, an agent's desk, and did the whole motion literary picture thing, and it was crazy, and learned there. And it's a very interesting time to be, you know, a Latina or whatever. And however, one thing that I having gone through the growing up, I've also saw, you know, people checking the, you know, the little boxes, the little, you know, the quota. And I work in a huge studio now, and I'm a writer, but I'm not doing that there. I'm finding other ways to get myself out as a writer. Although I have a lot of individual support, the studio as a whole just is not there yet. There's so much that has to be done, and it's a bit discouraging, but to Elija's points, places like Me Too, they are opening up development now for scripted programming, where before they did a lot of like online content and things like that, but they're literally trying to look for, or looking for any writers, they don't have to be guild or anything like that, who can also give that authentic voice and all that. So what my question is to each and every one of you, where is that the margin between becoming, you know, giving oneself and being an authentic and telling an authentic story, but also having to, as to your point, which I never really thought of it that way, kind of bite the bullet sometimes, so that way you can at least move up within the rank, so that you can eventually tell the story you want to tell. That to me is it's like, I feel like I've been doing that for so long, especially having slaved for someone else for so long, and now I'm so close. So I just would love to hear what you terrifically talented people have to say about that.
I'm gonna go first because
Okay.
I want to specifically talk to you, since I worked in a studio for many years as a network executive and a studio executive, so I know what you're going through. For me, what's important is that I don't just look at writing as storytelling. I always ask myself, aside from the plot, what is it that I want to say? So for me, storytelling is not just, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. It really is about a deeper sense of what is it that I want to say with the material that I'm writing. And I think if that stays intact, what you want to say, then you can work around that to take the notes, to change characters, to change scenes, if that stays intact. And so I would really encourage you, as a person who tells stories, to not only think about the plots that you want to tell, but to really be clear about the themes that you want to explore. And that's what you fight for. You fight for the theme. You thought for what it is that you want to say. And if you keep that intact, then there's a lot of stuff that can go away in the process.
Thank you. We're going to shift back to this side, and we've got a lot of questions, so we'll try to keep them kind of concise. And
of course. Hola, my name is Sonia Diaz, and I am at the beginning of my career as an actress. And this question is going to be to the three actresses that are sitting right here. But first, before I ask that question, is thank you to each and every one of you, because we are getting somewhere, even though it is a struggle. And I am very happy to have come here and to have had this opportunity because I got it at the last minute. And I am very excited to be here because to the two ladies here, I am Mexican American, American born, first generation. I didn't see my face on TV. I saw your face though. And thank you for that. Because I saw, she's like me. Like I look like her. Oh my God, you know? So thank you for that. And thank you for, I watched Univision growing up all the time, every novela that you have ever done, probably. You know? Like I saw it all. And that's
I'm
like.
so sorry for you.
No, stop. Don't even say that. No. But, you know, but then when you did, you know, Bajo la misma luna or Under the Same Moon, that was the first time it was on the big screen. And I just thought, yes, look, she's getting there. And, you know, to everybody who was a part of that, like, thank you so much. Because that's why I'm here. Because I see people like you that give me that power. Sorry to get emotional. And then you're doing great work. I've seen every, episode. You're doing amazing. And I agree, because I did notice that they didn't put those subtitles. And I was like, yes, that's right. Learn Spanish. No, I'm sorry. No, but my question is, for the three actresses, is that how do you approach looking at a character? How do you start? What is your first step when you're dealing with characters?
Well, I think we are all different, and not only each individual actress or actor. I treat every single role different. Every character that I play, I don't approach it the same way. They speak to me in different ways. So we all have our way of doing it. It's just like not you have to be the character. So it's just, first of all, not they always say that in the acting school, right? It's like, don't judge your character. You know, I played a human trafficker one with a movie called Trade with Kevin Kline, and it was like one of the worst characters, not characters, the role. So I was like, how am I going to approach this character that is so terrible? It hurts me, and I'm an advocate, an activist of human trafficking. So for me, it was very, and then I understood that she didn't know better. She was also trafficked. So you start not judging and start just to being and trying to understand why they do what they do. Mm-hmm. But again, that's only one. But I mean, every single character for me is different, the way I approach.
Yeah, I do a lot of research. I mean, like if I'm playing, I worked with Peter Berg, and I played a military helicopter pilot. So I interviewed 35 different people, men and women, because it was a very specific, she flew Black Hawks, and what does that mean when you are suffering with post-traumatic syndrome and all that. My current character on Lucifer, I'm a scientist, so I always understand what I'm saying. And I think you have to let go of ego. So it's my first female lead in this movie. It's a Mexican vigilante superhero movie, and I'm very proud of it. It's a $9 million budget movie, and she's from East LA, leaves to get her degree and comes back. And I thought, you know what? I have this scene where I get up in the morning, and I'm just not gonna get my hair blown out. I'm like, I know it's like, these big producers and CAA packaged it, and I beat out all the and I was like, this character would not have her hair blown out at 6 a.m, and I washed my hair and se me enchina el piel. I mean, I have full on indigeno hair, like chino. And I said, you know what? That's how she would roll. And I just put kind of my ego aside and really wanted to honor what it means to be born in Boyle Heights, right? And I was like, I got to give her wings for another scene, because my girls have their wings. And I think that if you get out of your own way of but you still obviously make it your own because no one else can be you but you, which is the beauty, right? So you don't walk into audition and say, is this what you want? I never do that. I walk in and I'm like, this is what I have. This is my gift to you. You drop the mic and you gracefully walk out the door. So for me, it's no regrets, right? My biggest thing is, if you don't do what you wanted to do, you'll always wonder that if you did, if things would have turned out differently. But if you left it all on the table and you did your work, you do your research, where are they from, you know, what do they do, and then you throw it all away, you just play in the moment, you become flexible, right, if they're giving you notes or whatever, and then and then you leave like a fucking baller, and you just don't. It's like pretend that you were diagnosed with cancer. You would just take all these risks. Take all these risks. I've thrown stuff before. It's probably you don't want to hurt people, but I don't care. I honestly do not give a shit, because my job isn't to be polite. My job is to make you do something you didn't know you were gonna do. I was doing a scene with Cuba Gooding Jr. It was one of my first big movies. He was sexually molesting me. He was super uncomfortable. It was his close-up. And I said, he was a cop. I was like a punk skateboarder. I said, what can I do to really piss off Cuba Gooding Jr.? And this was right after Jerry Maguire, who was on top of the world. And I said, I'm going to spit in his face. I didn't tell him I was going to spit in his face, but I pissed him off so much, he took his prop gun and, put it to my head. And I could have gotten fired, but I didn't. And they kept that in the movie. So don't be polite. Just go for it. Yeah.
Just spit. Thank you. This young man over here.
Well, very quickly, I'd just like to thank you guys, because I came here on chance. And on this lovely Saturday night, I was going to go out and give myself a day off. But you guys, honestly, you guys inspired me so much with everything that you're saying, forgetting gender, but just as filmmakers, that I'm going to go home and get my sweats and write tonight. So thank you.
Right on.
And my question has to go with writing specifically, and apologies for the specificity of it, but I feel like, sometimes I notice myself making mistakes, because I was born with the problem of being born a man, and specifically a Latin man, which I'm sure you've all had your experiences with. Sorry.
Let's get to the question.
Yes. I know, so I'll get there. But basically, I've noticed that there's like different ways of going about writing female lead characters, or just characters in general. And I was curious as to which one was more impactful for you guys, considering that you're the ones that are getting the screenplays. It's coming to you eventually. And I wanted to know what had more meaning for you, what had more weight, which is basically, I was hearing a lot about characters that sort of felt almost sexless, where you could look onto the page and you couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman, and if that was better and sort of had more weight to it, or if femininity and womanhood had more weight to it in terms of the perspective of the character, and that should stay, and that should be the building blocks for the character, you know what I mean? And which one of those is more meaningful to you guys? Which one's more impactful? Which one to kind of maybe, which direction to go for more?
Carla?
Sure. Right. So unlikability is a big one, because I feel like with women, you always have to be likable, and the female characters are described, at least in the scripts that I get, physically, their attributes rather than character attributes, and also they seem to be just likable and cute. And so to put in, really, because I even asked myself the question, like, why is it that they can't seem to write these female characters? Sometimes even women, though, fall in the trap of it. I really do, because we've been bombarded with these images and these ideas, and talking about sexuality. 38% of Latinas who are on the screen are half naked or naked. That's more than any of the other races and ethnicities. So we're used to having a Latina, oh my goodness, well, you've got to take off her clothes. So try, I think, if you're aware of those statistics, then maybe you're going to start realizing where it is that we're going wrong in the perception of what a woman is, what the commercials are saying that we should be, and what medicine and what the doctors are saying we should look like, what we should do with our bodies. So getting in the female, in like the same that we do research about our characters, is getting in their shoes and saying, okay, what is the stream of consciousness of a woman? She has to walk down this theater in heels that are painful, and and what is she? She has to go to the restroom and get up, more times than a man. Getting into those shoes are going to make all the difference. But I think it's really the work and taking the time to do it and having the empathy to do it and asking questions to women. I'm sure you're surrounded by women. You must have come from a woman. So I think it's that, just having the curiosity and the empathy.
Thank you.
This will have to be our last question.
Oh,
okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Hi, thank you so much for all of you guys being here. My name is Lariani. I actually went to a Latinas in Hollywood at CAA back in April, so to see that this conversation is still continuing, I am very happy. I born and raised in Massachusetts. I'm Dominican, so that was brought up earlier today. But like I said, I'm an actress, moved here 3 months ago, but I'm also interested in directing and also opening my own production company, because I do realize that it's the producers who get a green light the projects that then get the ball rolling and conversations starting. So I did notice that Natalia directed and Monica produced everything else. And so my question is, aside from, rewind. When it comes to Jane the Virgin, when it comes to Queen of the South, and when it comes to One Day at a Time, they're all phenomenal shows, TV shows that are Latina heavy, Latino heavy, but they're all shows that have been done before. So it's like, my question is, when it comes to Hollywood and the content of Latinos that are being produced, it's kind of like, do you not trust the original content that we have going forward? Are we going back to what has worked before and then doing that forward? So my question is, when it comes to producing, how does one find funding? How does one know how to market our films in order to be able to then have original content be shown and tell Hollywood, okay, we can do this also?
Okay, well, there was numerous questions in that question. So she packed it in for that last question, didn't she? You got everybody up there. So marketing, we want to talk about marketing?
Part of that question. I mean, the first, okay, what I heard, in terms of Queen of the South, clearly, La Reina del Sur is a very successful book that was a very successful soap opera. So David Friendly was the producer of that film. In fact, maybe Veronica Falcon is still here. She's not here. Okay. So that show, actually, the English language version on USA, was because David Friendly, a non-Latino, pitched it, and that's where that happened. And then this season, there's a Latina showrunner, Natalie Chaidez. And if you watch that show, you can see the difference, right? It's amazing to have a Latina writer and showrunner. Okay, I'm not answering your question. The next show was One Day at a Time, Norman Lear.
Yeah, he's
right.
an alumni of my alma mater.
Right, exactly. So all of those shows, I think I'm repeating what you said, right? All of those shows have a... What's the question then?
Marketing. And how?
Yes, how do you market original content of Latinos that haven't been done before, that where Hollywood can still say, okay, I think that this can work, instead of saying, well, this has worked before, so we'll do it again?
I mean,
so coming up with original programming, what you're talking about, versus going back and revisiting projects that have already been done.
Yes.
And so how do we get Hollywood to acknowledge that we don't only have to rely on what has already been done, but how do we then get them to say, take a risk on something that is new?
Yes.
Is that your question? Yes. And how to market that?
Yes.
It's complicated. I mean, it's very complicated, right? There was Cristela, right? Cristela had a show on ABC, and that didn't work, unfortunately. There's a bunch of new shows that have just been announced, right, that are in development. Stars is developing a few stories. You're doing, okay, so she's doing Vida. So I think that we, it's very complicated, but we're not there yet. I mean,
if I could just add, part of the problem is that as an industry, they haven't really figured out how to reach the Latino market. Right. And a lot of it is because, it was only until I got to Hollywood that I even called myself a Latina. I've been a Mexican my entire life. This Latina word really happened to be politically active, right, because there is power in numbers. So it was better to be a Latina or Latinos and have a group of people than to be Mexican. But nowhere else where I travel in Latin America have I ever heard anybody call themselves Latinos. They're Argentinos, Chilenos, Mexicanos, Venezolanos, Puerto Ricanos, right? So they can't figure it out because we are such a diverse population. So even though we're 50 million plus strong in the country, there's more Latinos in the United States than the entire population of Canada, in case you don't know that. But it's very difficult with how are we going to target the Southwest Latinos versus the Miami Latinos versus the New York Latinos. They haven't figured that out yet. So as a result, that is why you're seeing Queen of the South, One Day at a Time, and the other show that you mentioned that I can't remember right now, Jane the Virgin. Because it was their attempt to figure out, okay, well, this is a brand, at least two of the three, are brands that Latinos already know. And maybe that's the way to pull them into a show to watch that show. Okay. And I think, you know, for me, I'm just much more interested in telling diverse and universal stories that happen to have Latinos than to really be specific about the audience that I'm going to target, because I don't want Latinos to be the only ones that are looking at my product. I want everybody to be looking at my product. So, but to answer the question, that's why it's happening. It's happening because they haven't figured it out, and they see with really popular brands, and Queen of the South was the biggest, and Jane the Virgin was very popular. Betty La Fea was very popular. It was a way to try to attract a Latino audience that they don't know how to reach. So it was an easy, lazy way out.
The way Salma did it, just really quickly, is they didn't want to buy Betty La Fea, so she decided to go sell it to the advertisers beforehand. So then she went back to ABC, said, by the way, I've got your whole lineup of advertisers saying that they would advertise with this show. So do you still not want the show? And then they got the show made. So
Beautiful.
And her partner was Ben Silverman. Yeah. Right. So I just like speak, and her partner. So all of these executive producers are Hollywood executive producers that are known. So you're not getting hired unless you have a track record, and you're bringing along the Latina because she has to be there, and obviously she's Salma Hayek now. But you know, it's complicated.
But what's so great, if I can just add one thing, I'm sorry, if I can just add, with Queen of the South, having Natalie Chaves on the show this year, she hired an all Latino writing staff. Yeah. Like, that's the importance of getting somebody in there. You know, Tanya Saracho, who just got her show greenlit at Stars, all of her heads are Latinos. Her entire writing staff is Latino. The director of her pilot is a Latino. That's the power of getting someone that is in the room and making a decision to be a Latino.
And that is exactly kind of going full circle about how I started out talking about the fact that unless we're in that executive suite and unless we're at the table, unless we're having we are able to hire people that we're not going to have change. And as we see that is exactly what is happening. It's, you know, with any, well, I'm not going to go there because we're really out of time. So thank you all very much for coming tonight. Really appreciate all of the panelists. Thank you. I'm sorry we had such little time to talk to each of you. And thank you to Lourdes very much for putting all this together and having us here tonight.
Tonight's program can be streamed on the PST LA page at the Oscars.org website. Again, tonight's program can be streamed on the PST LA page at the Oscars.org website. Thank you.